Hey everyone, Sheila here from Life for Pets. So in the last episode we took a look at choosing a betta fish tank and all that you needed to think about. If you haven't seen that video, I will leave a link in the little top iCard if you want to take a look at it after this video. This week we're going to take a look at all the items that you need when setting up a tank and also the items that you need for the long-term health of the tank. I will leave as many links in the description box below as I can for the items, so if you want to take a look at them, then they will be there for you. Okay, so let's get on with the video.
Okay, so this is everything that you need to set up a tank. I know it may look a little overwhelming because there's a lot of stuff there. However, the substrate that's all on the right there, that is actually 3 different types to show the different options, but obviously you will only use one of those. Also, I haven't added in the food and the water test kit, but I'm going to show that later in the video. I just wanted to do everything to do with setting up a tank first, and then we'll address things that you also need to take care of the fish and the water chemistry as well. So we're going to start off with substrate, and I have 3 different kinds of substrate to show you. The first one is sand. This is just a black sand, but obviously you can use white sand, and sand is a good option as a substrate. However, you do need to be aware that it does take a little more maintenance, that you vacuum it thoroughly so that gas pockets don't build up in it, because that can actually be very, very dangerous for your fish. So sand is a good option, but just be aware that it will take a little more care to make sure that your fish is in a good environment. The second one is gravel. Gravel is probably the most popular in the hobby, and that is a really good substrate to have. And then the third one is, if you're wanting to do live plants, then you can actually choose a substrate that is specific for them. Fluval stratum is one. There's also Eco Complete. There's a lot of them out there that you can actually use. So all these 3 are good options. You can use sand and gravel if you want to do a planted tank. You will just have to put more effort into feeding the plants if that's the way you choose to go. So moving on to filtration, if we start with the hang on the back filter, this is a good option for if it's just a general fish tank without a betta fish. However, a lot of the time they are way too strong. Now they can be adapted to have a better flow, but personally I do think if you can get a filter that you can fully control, which sponge filters you can, then I do think that that is a better option if you are starting from scratch and you have that option available to you. The second option is the internal filter, and again, for a general community tank, that one is a great filter, but it's just way too strong for betta fish. Our personal preference is the sponge filters, and that's simply because you can completely control the flow on them. You can have it as fast or as slow as you want that suits your betta fish. So I do want to go just a little more in depth with the filtration, because it's one of the things we get asked the most. There are different options and sizes of sponge filters. The one we recommend for the 2.5 gallon is the smaller one, and that just works absolutely perfectly. It also will go in the 5 gallon, but I do think that the next size up is better unless you're actually going to divide it, in which case you can put one in both sides. The middle one, that one is great to go into the 5 gallon, and then the bigger one would be for a 10 gallon, although both can actually go in that tank. However, the middle one just has a better fit because it's more shaped, so it doesn't take up quite as much room in the tank. All of these do need the tubing, the connectors and the actual air pump, but we do sell these as a kit on our website, so if you it seems a bit overwhelming, they do come in a kit. Also, we do have videos on how to set them up as well, and we are going to show you in the setup video exactly how to set up a sponge filter setup. So it is very easy, and like I say, to me they are the best option for betta fish. Now, if you're feeling a little adventurous, you can also make your own filter. I'm not going to go too much in depth on this one, but we do have a video on it and I will link it. So if that is maybe something that you want to have a go at, then you can do that. But that is also another option that you can do. So why use a filter? Filters are extremely important within the fish ecosystem. They house all the bacteria that keeps the water safe for the fish. So if you don't have a filter, then you should be doing water changes every 2 to 3 days, and that's large water changes every 2 to 3 days. Otherwise, your fish is living in a tank that is full of ammonia, which is actually burning them and creates a very bad environment for them, and it's why they get sick very often. So filtration is extremely important, and in betta fish it's often overlooked. So let's move on to heaters. Betta fish are tropical fish and need temperatures of 78 to 82 degrees. They need a consistent temperature, so around 80 is a good temperature for them. Now, we do not use heaters, and I do think this is probably something that causes a lot of confusion. However, I do say it as often as I can in videos. The reason we don't use heaters is because our house is a consistent 78-79 degrees, and all our tanks run at that without heaters in them. Now, the months where the temperature outside fluctuates, and that is probably for about 2 to 3 months of the year, then we do add heaters to the tanks so that the temperature remains constant. So heaters are extremely important. If you don't put a heater in a betta fish tank and your tank is swinging all over and the temperature is fluctuating, or they're living in 70-72 degrees, they're going to be very lethargic. It is not the ideal environment, and it's how they get sick very, very easily. So a heater is a must. Okay, so let's talk about what you're going to need to keep the water safe for the fish and to be able to do water changes. So the first thing you're going to need is the Prime water conditioner, or water conditioner in general. I do believe Prime is the best one because it takes care of everything that is in tap water that makes the water unsafe for fish, and then Prime then makes it safe for fish. Also, we're going to be using Stability, and this is basically the beneficial bacteria in a bottle, and that is going to help to kickstart the tank. Now, you don't have to do this. This is just the way we chose to cycle our tank and what we used. Next up, we're going to be using the gravel cleaners, and you use these when doing a water change. You need this because you need to be able to plunge it into the gravel so that it takes out all the dirt. This one is good for the 2.5 gallon and the 5.5 gallon tank, and then the bigger one is good for 10 gallons. If you were to try and use the bigger one on a 5 gallon, then it would take the water out way too quickly and you wouldn't be able to clean the tank properly. So the smaller one is better for the smaller tanks, and then the bigger one is better for the 10 gallon and up. So next up is decoration in the tank, and the thing with betta fish is they do like a very heavily planted tank. So whether that is fake plants or real plants, either way you do need to have a lot of them. The thing to remember when putting anything in a betta fish tank, whether it be decoration or plants, is that they do need to not have any sharp edges. If they've got sharp edges or the plants are very spiky, they can quite easily rip a betta's fins because their fins are so delicate. So that is something to really take into account. Obviously, live plants, you don't have that issue, and live plants do have a lot of benefits. However, you do need to make sure that you feed the plants, but you can do that with something like root tabs, and we will be able to show you in later videos how you do that should you choose to use live plants. Next up is thermometer. You need a thermometer to know what the temperature of the tank is, and this one is usually the most popular one, and it's just got the suction cup, so it sticks on the side of the glass and then you can see the temperature, or it will actually float around your tank. Another option is the digital thermometer, and the probe just goes in the water and then the other part just sticks on the outside of the tank, and you can read the temperature that way. Okay, so let's talk about dividers. Now obviously this is just an option. This is not how you have to set up a tank, but some people do like to do this, so I am going to show the process. Obviously you need a good divider that is going to be solid and stable to go in the tank, that it's not going to fall, that it's not going to, a betta fish can't push it out the way. This is actually why we made these, because we heard so many horror stories about homemade dividers and how betta fish were getting through them and over them and round them and the injuries, and so this is how this product actually came about. So if you're wanting to do a divided tank, we do recommend that that you do filtration on both sides, either 2 small sponge filters, or if you don't want to do filtration on both sides, it's really about having water movement on both sides. So you can do a filter on one side and then use a air stone on the other side, and then that would give a little more filtration. So this is just another option. It is a good option if you're wanting more than one betta fish in a tank, and you can do that safely as long as you get a good divider. So talking about lighting, we just usually get very simple LED aquarium lights, and that is what this one is. It will be more than sufficient for a planted tank, and so lighting does not have to be expensive. However, if you're wanting to do high-tech plants and get really into doing a live planted tank, then you would need to look into some really good lights, but this one is just a very simple LED light. For a lid, if you're choosing to make your own, you can do it out of something like acrylic, and then that way you can add all your own openings that you want on the lid. We do have a video on how to do that, and I will leave a link to it in the little top iCard. Obviously, if you're buying an aquarium that is part of a kit, then it's already going to come with a lid, but a lid is important on a betta fish tank because very often bettas will try and jump. Okay, next up we're going to talk about food and then the water test kit. Food, obviously you do not have to have all the foods that you see here. This is just a selection just to show you the options that are available. We do a lot of frozen food, and then the ripashi is like a gel food that you make up. Bug bites is a pellet food, and then I do have flakes in there. I actually don't use flakes, but the omega-1 flakes are a good option if you choose to use a flake for your betta fish. It is good to give them a varied diet. If you could use sort of 2 to 3 different types of food, that would really give them a good diet. Just giving them the same thing over and over and over again is not really that healthy for them, so to switch it up from time to time is a good thing. Now, the water test kit comes into play when cycling a tank. It is needed for that, and also for just general maintenance. Now, you don't have to get the master kit that I have here. You can actually use strips. They are just as accurate as the master kit, although I know a lot of people will disagree with that. A lot of people have done different testing and found that they are very similar. So, you know, if you can't stretch to buying the master kit, then just go ahead and get the strips. This will actually tell you on this kit what the reading of your water is, whether it's high in ammonia, do you have nitrite, is the tank cycled and you've got nitrate. So it is very important to have. So I'm going to be using that a lot more in depth when we cycle the tank, and so I'll talk about it much more then. So I think that is everything that you need to set up a tank. I do hope I haven't forgotten anything. In the next episode, we are actually going to be setting up the tank and going through that whole process. That video will be up next Tuesday, and then the one after that we will be then going through the cycling process. The tank actually has been set up for a while now and is fully cycled, so we are going to show that process, what happened during the process, and talk all about that as well. Alright guys, I do thank you for your feedback on the last video. So many of you were saying this is going to be a helpful series, and I'm so pleased about that because this video series has taken us such a long time to do. So thank you so much for all that positive feedback. If you're not subscribed to this channel and would like to see more videos like this, then please do so, and we'll see you next time.